I know he was making more money when I refiled in April, and then all of a sudden I believe he quit that job and then took a lower paying job.
He's completely stopped paying my child support for some reason and started actually pocketing my child support into his own pocket. So that's why I left that job. I work at Sonic now. I've been promoted to an assistant manager, and I'm trying to make it my career.
Dad's called the cops on every place that Mom has lived.
Did you calculate current child support in this matter?
Yes, I did.
What are your calculations?
The monthly gross income is $1907. There are no union dues. The medical insurance paid to the state will be $72. Net income $1613.84. There's one child on this order. Mr. McMichael has 3 other children presently living in his home that are minors. The net resources after deductions is $1190.21. The percentage applied is 27.38%, leaving a monthly child support of $238.
I'm showing on my screen what's been marked as State's Exhibit 2. What is this document?
That is my calculation sheet. And I do want to make one point where it says on letter F, that is 1190.21, not 1110. It looks like a 10 on my screen.
Are these your calculations in this particular case?
Yes, it is.
All right. This is also a shorthand rendition of the testimony you just provided to the court.
Yes, ma'am, it is.
Your Honor, I offer what's been marked for identification purposes. State's Exhibit 2, that's the child support calculation sheet in this case.
Okay, I'm going to admit this as State's Exhibit 2. Okay. Admitted.
All right. Ms. Pace, the state would call Ms. Pace. Are you in agreement to these guideline child support calculations for current support?
I'm not in agreement with the amount. I know he was making more money when I refiled in April, and then all of a sudden I believe he quit that job and then took a lower paying job. So I'm in agreement what it physically says, like calculation wise, but I'm not in agreement that it's right, because I know he took a lower paying job right after I filed.
Why do you think that?
I filed on April 4th, and while I was in the Attorney General's office, they called the workplace that he filed with Sawyer Trailers, and they confirmed that he was working there. And they asked them a couple other questions, like why aren't they garnishing? And I don't know exactly what they said because I wasn't there, but they did confirm that he worked there. And then suddenly he changed jobs right after the fact that he quit, and he changed it to Sonic or wherever he's working now.
All right, Mr. McMichael, where were you? What was your previous employer?
I was self-employed. I was getting paid from Sawyer Trailers, but I was a self-employed, not a 1099 contractor. There's a good reason why I left. We had a verbal agreement. He was taking $100 a week out for child support, and it went on for a month. I worked for him for a while, and then he stopped. He stopped paying my child support. And if you look back, it was written from Sawyer Trailers by Jeremy Green. He's completely stopped paying my child support for some reason and started actually pocketing my child support into his own pocket. So that's why I left that job. And you can see that I'm behind in child support because of that. And I'm trying to get caught back up. I work at Sonic now. I've been promoted to an assistant manager, and I'm trying to make it my career.
When did you leave your employment at the trailer business?
I believe it was June 9th. I believe it could have been sooner than that. I worked there for 6 months.
When did you begin your employment at Sonic?
I began my employment at Sonic on the 16th, I think, June 16th.
What kind of work did you do at the trailer company?
I was a welder.
A welder? Is that what you
Yes,
said?
ma'am. Yeah, I was a welder. They weren't treating me right.
Do you have any welding licenses or certifications?
No, ma'am, I don't. I taught myself.
Have you sought any other welding employment?
I have, but the places around here aren't hiring. They're actually closing down. And my phone is at 2%. I can't seem to get my phone charger to work. It's not wanting to work. But maybe I can plug it into a different outlet. 1 second.
Pass the witness, Your Honor.
Okay, Ms. Pace, is there anything else you'd like to say?
No.
Okay. Mr. McMichael, is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, ma'am.
And Ms. Laskowski, is there anything else you'd like to say?
Very briefly, Ms. Pace, is there any, do you have any safety concerns with Mr. McMichael knowing where you live?
Yes.
Why?
He's called child support on me, not child support, excuse me. I'm sorry. He's called the cops on every place that I've lived. Every time we get into like a small argument, he will call the police officers to come check on Hunter. And I mean, it's gotten to the point. I was living with a friend of the family, and he knew where I was living. He called the police officers out there to check on Hunter. And then when I was not there, and I told him multiple times that I was not there at the time and that I would, let him call Hunter later, something. And he decided to call the police onto my mother's house and then onto another place that I had previously lived, trying to find where I was, but I didn't live there. He's now barred from calling on my mother's house. He's now barred from going to the other place that I live. And I mean, I've just moved in here less than 2 years ago, and I've already had the police out here at least 4 separate times because I'm busy. I can't have him talk to Hunter or some silly reason, and he will come out here trying to have the police come out here to look at Hunter, that he's worried about Hunter, even though there's never been a accusation of abuse on my part at all.
Okay. Pass the witness, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. McMichael, is there anything you'd like to say about that?
Yes, ma'am. I only called the police to do welfare checks. I actually have a couple police reports stating she violated child custody order, not giving my son over to me on my time. And that's the only reason why I called the police, is to find out where Hunter is, because sometimes she didn't tell me where she's living or where he's living. And I love my son, and I care about my son.
How many times have you called the police on her?
Over the years,
I'm sorry, you're breaking up, so I couldn't hear that.
I said over the last 7 years, about maybe 5 times.
And since 2018, how many times?
Maybe 2, 1 at the most. It hasn't been years. The only time the last time I got a hold of the police officer was to file for breaking the child custody order. She wouldn't hand over Hunter to me on a weekend. Hold on, Bubba.
Ma'am, how many times do you think he called the police in the last 2 years?
At least 10. In the last 2 years, at least 7.
How do you know it's him?
Because they come out for welfare checks on Hunter, and they say that the other parent has called. That was within the last 2 years. I have gotten twice out to my new residence where I'm living right now, just before 2 years ago, because I've been here about almost 2 years. The previous address that I was living at with the friend of the family, he called there twice. He also called on my mother's that same day with that same incident. So there's 5 just in the last 2 years that I can think of off the top of my head. And those are just welfare checks. And then he is, I can't remember if he says he called the police on me once because I wouldn't hand him over, but that was the last time I refused to hand him over. He had an open CPS investigation with one of his other children for neglect, and they hadn't closed the case, and I didn't feel comfortable sending him over there, and I refused. And then they called me a few days later during his scheduled visit, and they said that they closed the case. And after that, I said, that's fine. They didn't find anything. And I resumed visitation like normal. And that was in 2018, 2018, I think.
Where do you all do visitation exchanges?
I'm sorry?
Where do you all do visitation exchanges?
We used to do them at the Walmart on El Dorado. We would do them in the parking lot, or we would do them inside of like the McDonald's where there's cameras.
Mhm.
I ended up moving to Cleveland near, actually in Splendora, Texas. And so it's actually closer towards where he was. So we ended up meeting here in the at Cleveland Walmart. We had an incident at the Cleveland Walmart, and so now we're meeting at the Cleveland Police Station. That's where we met last time, at least. We went there once.
Okay, I'm going to confirm the child support judgments that were agreed upon. I'm ordering a child support judgment against Mr. McMichael in the amount of $443.99 as of June 30th, 2023. Going to approve the agreement and order that he pay that back at a rate of $52 a month, beginning August 1st of 2023. I'm going to confirm the medical support judgment of $144 in order that he pay that back at a rate of $51 a month beginning August 1st of 2023.
I am going to deny the modification request. The new child support calculation does not vary by $100 or 20% from the old one. It does not appear to be a substantial change in circumstance either.
If I could just request it, if anything, I know that she didn't agree with the order, with the child support order that was in place. If it's possible, if it'd make it okay to keep it the same as it is, because I am struggling as far as my financial situation.
Okay, I just denied the modification request, so everything is staying the same per the prior order. I am going to grant the non-disclosure, and I'm going to order that you communicate through app close. It's an app you can run to your phone. And that way you can still communicate if you need to about the child, especially since you're meeting up in public places. I don't want one of you standing around waiting. The other one could be ill or out of town or something, and you just sometimes need to communicate. So this is a way to do it. It keeps the communication for perpetuity. It date stamps it. And so if you ever needed to show it to police or to a court, you could print it out and either submit it electronically or print it out and submit paper if the court takes paper, if you needed to. And hopefully it would keep everybody in line and communicating properly. But you all need some way to communicate if you're not giving your addresses or your address and phone number, ma'am. So I'm going to grant the non-disclosure for Ms. Pace, and I'm going to order court costs be paid by February 29th, 2024 by Mr. McMichael. The Attorney General's office is going to draft an order based on my ruling today. They're going to send it to y'all through DocuSign to review and sign off on. And then they'll be sending it through for signature to me. But first they'll send it to you all through DocuSign, so you'll have it for your records. Ms. Laskowski, do you have any questions?
Is there any ruling on an exchange location or?
That
no?
was not before me.
Okay, I just
I was
wanted to
asking for that because it related to the non-disclosure.
Okay.
I didn't
All
want
right.
to grant a non-disclosure if he's picking the kids up every week at her house.
Sure.
'Cause I'm in
That-
visitation.
Check. Thank you, Judge.
I have to drive 4 hours to pick up
Sir,
my
sir,
son
it's not
every
before me
morning.
today. It's if you
Oh,
all
yes, ma'am,
want
I'm
to
sorry.
modify other parts or enforce these rules against these orders against each other, you might want to consult private lawyers. There might be legal remedies you all have, but they're not before me today.
Yes, ma'am.
The mother's not allowed to just uproot the children and move them 2,500 miles away without getting the court's permission to do so. Okay? Because that had a drastic impact on your ability to be a dad.
So again, we're going to move you to breakout rooms, but thank you all for coming in. And Ms. Eschenberg, if you can help them back to their breakout rooms.
Yes. Thank you, Judge.